The door is very far. Before you leave, can you tell us whether this was legal? Because I didn't hear Parliament talking about this. Thank you.
And I'm really happy that Dr. Suruma agreed with the position that we had, some of us in 2010, when we proposed that pay as you earn should actually be scrapped, because we thought that individuals are better left to make rational decisions on how they spend their money. And through their expenditures and investments, it would actually increase job creation and even increase the level of indirect taxes that would eventually go to government. So I think this is a time for us to also think about reforming our tax code to see what type of taxes do stimulate growth, what type of taxes do actually create inertia in the economy. Some of us still believe that some direct taxes could be even more important, like graduated tax, in order to make sure that our people in rural areas have some sort of responsibility and a share in the public sector to know that we are paying something, we should demand services. And that would even enhance Dr. Suruma's idea of citizen agency. The other aspect of this donor aid I wanted to talk about is, where is our aid going? We see more aid going into financing public administration expenditure and financing social services, but we see less aid flows going into supporting trade-related activities, whether it is activities like making our borders more efficient, adding value to our products that would bring in more export revenue. We don't see a lot of money going there. Even when aid comes in terms of supporting trade, it is to purchase tickets for our negotiators in the World Trade, in the WTO, in the negotiating economic partnership agreements. And you see, how can Ugandan negotiators negotiate effectively with people who have just financed their air tickets to go to Washington, to go to Sao Paulo and other places? They end up confused in those green rooms and we never get very good deals. But maybe Dr. Muhumuza, you may need to tell us, in spite of all the goings on, why is it that for the past 2-3 years, Uganda received much higher foreign direct investment than countries like Kenya, which received for the past last year 133 million United States dollars. Uganda received 847, Tanzania 700, Rwanda, which is much held for having very good doing business environment or doing business better indices, just receiving 42 in foreign direct investments. What's the reason for Uganda's position, very good position, in receiving foreign direct investment? For now, thank you, Chairman.
All right, let's have Mr. Hussein Kishilengi.
For some time, Dr. Suruma spent, before he joined government, he spent a lot of time articulating a position that was at variance with our economists at Ministry of Finance. So after a long period of time, the president decided, let me have this man try out the things he keeps saying. So when he got Ministry of Finance, the guys there who are not happy with whatever he was already saying, from the day he stepped in the corridors of finance, they said, we shall make you fail, and they made him fail. And at the end of the day, he was booted out. No, he was not. He has never been, by the way. That has been his position, and he's still in that position. And he was booted for the same ideas he still holds today. I defend him on that. And of course, they were happy with Honorable Saida Bumba because she's not an economist, so they were able to drive her wherever they wanted. I think what Dr. Suruma says is talking about less government. I'm not an economist, so I won't go into economic terms. But I think he's talking about less government and more private sector-led growth.
Actually, we don't have sufficient resources I want to hear his comment on that, given also what Muhumza has indicated. My second question is to Muhumza, who has talked about these development approaches, socialism and capitalism, and he seems to leave us in suspense. So what is it that actually we should be pursuing? If it is a mixed one, then what are those elements of that mixed economy that actually we should be looking at? Thank you very much. Onesimus Mujenyi is my name.
But I would like to take issue with his views on increasing public confidence in public accountability. Because when he was Minister of Finance, he constructed the NSSF board. And if you followed the investigations on Temangaro, the famous Temangaro, you will notice that that board was deliberately constructed not to secure NSSF fund, but to steal it. Now, I'm not implying that he's the one who did it. It could have been done behind his back. That is to be extremely very diplomatic. And that's why the issue is, if you're talking about confidence in public accountability, are you dealing with, now in that case, Jamwa, the MD? Are you dealing with the Minister of Finance who constructed that board and Jamwa? Or are you dealing with the boss of the Minister of Finance, whoever it may be? You know, there are several others there. So where is the problem? Now, if you're talking about increasing confidence, whom do we deal with? Do we deal with Jamwa, convict him, and then give him bail at Court of Appeal and then go and sleep? Whom do we deal with? Do we deal with the sponsors of this corruption? Of this modern corruption? We need to also critically interrogate the mindset that diverts humanitarian aid that you talked about, meant for northern Uganda, to purchase a Mercedes-Benz for the Prime Minister. The issue is not purchasing that luxurious Mercedes-Benz, but the mindset. Which kind of fellows are these? They did not use Todova, they didn't use candles, they never suffered from jiggers. How is their mindset? Like you who sat in those air-conditioned offices, how do you feel at that time? You are not informed about it, you don't get a revelation that it is abominable to do that kind of thing, that kind of mindset. And therefore, that's the mindset that ought to be punished. Now, do we use this penal code or use something else? Now, Mr. Chairman, you are my witness, and I will refer to you by your names, Edmond Tizitu. I told you months in advance, before the OPM scandal, that a big person was receiving averagely more than 500 million shillings per weekend, and sometimes it could even be daily. The principal accountant was required to generate not less than 500 million shillings at least per weekend, but if possible, every day, and he had to generate it. Now, if you follow the proceedings, that's why the generation was not very organized, and you look at him now, he's zonto, you will even never know the truth. Now, therefore, my view, Mzee Suruma, is that the problem is not with the accountants. The problem is with the political elite. This brand of the political elite, I don't know where they learned this method somewhere in Ruero. Because I don't call this corruption, I call it fundraising. You look at Mr. Wamafa, when they are appearing in court, you look at his demeanor, you will see an old, innocent fellow with very young people, smart, and go and find out how they were selected. Same age group with special forces, spread the country over in these public accounting bodies, but the way they steer is extremely sophisticated and the same mode. Now we also need to examine their parents. How do their parents historically link these celebrations that we had the other day? Now, all in all, I would, through you, invite government to publish the withdrawals from these accounts. Because we have been investigating how money came to these accounts of the Obe, of Kazinda. We have been investigating how money came there. We have reached at the amount of money that is there, and we are convinced it was stolen. Now, let them also publish the withdrawals. Who received that money? Because it was not withdrawn and in those people's names and put in sacks. So no. it was put on some other person's account, and you will come to the same conclusion that I arrived at, that this was not stealing, it was public, it was fundraising. Hallelujah.
Thank you very much. I want to thank my colleague for saying what he's saying, because that's what many of us do believe. And we believe that because of the conduct of those who are supposed to protect our finances, they are clearly robbers. Now, I want to thank the presenters. For me, I must say I was happy listening to you, because you know everything. You know what should be done. But the issue is, it is not done. And the unfortunate part of it is that it can never be done in the current government. That is very clear. I mean, every Ugandan should be clear of that. We are dealing with an issue of total failure of systems and total undermining and capture of institutions. And once you have those collapse, then what are you doing? Because for me, I've been trying to imagine, I just can't understand, and I don't know, I don't even get the words to use. When I am listening to the evidence coming from the park, when people talk of 190, is it billions or millions, billion, on an individual person's account, Dr. Suruma, you were a Minister of Finance. I mean, you were a chief in the governor there, whatever, deputy governor, all these things. Have you ever heard of a government where public money is put on private individuals' accounts? I mean, I've never heard of this in my life. I just hear it in Uganda, and instead of having the whole institution dissolved, the leaders sacked and taken to prison, I hear the president defending them. Bejeremana is a whistleblower. Stupid. I'm sorry for that language. Don't take the microphone from me. I must express Ugandans' anger. I am telling you, it is too much. And then Mbabasi, flamboyantly, having escaped Chogam, now he comes and says, yes, Virgilmana is okay, whistleblower. Can you imagine me if I'm a housewife? And the food in the kitchen is not there, and I'm whistleblowing what Matemba, I don't know. How do you whistleblow? I don't know. So that shows clearly what we are dealing with. Honestly, President Museveni, me, I love him, I don't hate him. But surely, when is he going to know and learn? In any case, he has learned that Ugandans are fed up of him, and that's why he wants to raise up and capture himself and overthrow himself. So for me, the thing we should discuss, Dr. Suruma, you talk of, in your talk of restoring governments, you clearly said that once people lose confidence in government, it is gone, it is finished. And you know very well that we have lost it. I'm just finishing, don't disturb me. You know very well that the confidence is totally lost. I heard you say all these economic things you can do to restore confidence. Not in this current government. There is no way that Ugandans can get confidence back into this government. Therefore, for me, I want to say, what we should be discussing is how to arrest and imprison these people, the leaders in this government, so that they can give way for a new, let me also talk, if the army can say they want to overthrow and they are not arrested, then I should also say we should deal with the current political leadership, starting from the president, the prime minister, and all of them, because they have become thugs, they are robbing us, and we are suffering. Otherwise, it will just be a classroom debate. Thank you very much.
All right, let's hear from Mr. Peter Kibazo, then the RDC at OO.
Honorable Matembe and chairs, and the deliberate effort to get away from the subject. But of course, that's where Dr. Israel Suruma started. where is the dissection between the politics and the economy? And the forefathers that manipulated the economics to appear political economy, and then subsequently it goes back to economics, to the economy as it were. Going back to this particular one, 27 years later, have we had a Marshall Plan as a country? Because we've tried things when Dr. Israel Suruma was the chief thinker for this economy, both at the NRM Secretariat and subsequently at the Ministry of Finance. We grappled with the PEEP that has now been deleted for a new plan that Fred and the others are trying to kickstart. Have we had a Marshall Plan for this economy? We've tried the budget support and the distinction between NUSAF and Northern Uganda Reconstruction tells you directly that the budget support was constructed for the people at Finance and Bank of Uganda to get their hands into the till. Because the other one that is directly funded, NUSAF, has for some reason had a fairer impact on the community than Northern Uganda Reconstruction Program that comes through budget support. Is that deliberate or is it by failure? Then I need to understand, because when we talk about donor aid, we talk about interventions, we talk about support. We do not talk about a kickstart for the economy. What is the impact of the foreign direct investments that Morrison is talking about? Do they come in billions, in trillions into the economy? Do they kickstart activity? Or are they a trickle through written on paper and then 2 weeks, 2 years later, they are not visible? Thank you.
All right. For the thorough analysis of the situation and recommendations. But when you hear from Jackie, for example, she talked about motivation of donor aid. And these words, I think they are carefully selected. And when you look at the motivation, nobody has talked about systematic design to rob, subjugate the receiving countries by the so-called donors. I don't know whether it was designed by the presenters, but it is, at the end of the day, or at the end of the analysis, it is clear that the so-called donors do not well mean to us. And I have not heard from the presenters anybody saying that with our level of 75% generated budget support, we need no more donation of that nature. If you're above 50%, even if you reach 75%, I have not had a proposal from all the presenters that it's high time we stopped this money and we survived on what we have. I have not heard it from, I don't know whether they think we cannot survive without that 25%. Because really what we are talking about, it's because we want luxury. 75% money is enough for us to fight within and we live. For how long shall we continue donating our own wealth to the so-called donors who are actually robbers? Secondly, when you look at the donor, that donation, nothing is coming to production. It is deliberately go get this money for consumption. I am happy about Dr. Selma. He mentioned that one of the areas we must seriously think about is to increase agricultural productivity. Mzee Nkrumah has been in it all this time. I don't know whether he's the same person who was the Minister of Finance, whether he's the same person who was the Director of Economic Monitoring, or this is a different one. Because at one time, if I were in charge, I'm now the RDC in PG. So if there's any government program to be done in PG and I don't do it, I don't know whom I'm going to blame. And I have made it a record wherever I have passed, I must leave a legacy. Some people may not be happy, but I will do it, because it is my responsibility. So it is also self-defeating when you start getting new ideas when you are out of this office, when you still have the same head. Now, capitalism, socialism. Some of us, I think we are happy. At one time, socialism collapsed. Now, at another time, capitalism have collapsed. All the presenters have left us in suspense. And I have been asking myself, the people who are teaching economics these days, what are you telling students? Because capitalism, socialism collapsed, capitalism have collapsed. And they are saying, you must belong to where? I think it was Dr. Muhammad who said, you must say where you want to be. Now, both of them have collapsed. So where are we supposed to be? So I think we need to come out clearly and be called what you're supposed to be. Because to me, countries which have been like us, you know them, the East Asian tigers, have not come out of where they have been because of good capitalism. No, they are actually practicing command economy. And there are signs that they are coming out. But those which have practiced free enterprise economy have died, and they are on their knees. Even the so-called donors, in the guise of withdrawing donation, it's not true that they are withdrawing it, they have no choice. They have no money anymore to spend. So they are looking inwards now. So I think it's important to be Ugandans, to be ourselves, and say, let us live within our own means.
All right, thank you very
now,
much.
Now, lastly, I had my friend Brian Matembe. Of course, these are thugs, but she had an opportunity to be a minister of ethics and integrity. Can I know the safeguards she put in that, because this is the ministry responsible to put the safeguards, okay, which she put in the ministry to make sure that these loose drivers are not there.
Thank you.
But you cannot start lamenting when you had an opportunity to perfect that you did not do it.
Thank you
so
very
I think we need to take the responsibility. This is our
Thank you.
country.
Thank you
but
very
to
much.
me, my view on donation and donors,
Okay.
we must stop it. We live in 75%. That's when we can think better and move the country forward.
All right.
Thanks.
Aid in general. I will not deal with the important things you're talking about. Who got the money? Where did they go? But you are more informed than me to explain this. But I want to make a reflections on the role of aid in general. I think that in the last 20-25 years, aid has been a crucial mechanism used by the United States, especially for military cooperation. So Uganda has played a crucial role in the region for its role vis-à-vis Somalia, vis-à-vis the RDC, and so on. So of course here aid has a lot to do with the geopolitics, right? Not only with the economics and so on, as it has been said. But beyond this, aid has been a central mechanism in regulating the relation between northern countries and southern countries. The problem, however, with aid, which at the end ends up as a mechanism of having ready-made money, is that it distorts the relation between government and citizens, right? It distorts the relation of accountability, of reciprocity. Basically, the government does not need anymore the citizen, right? So, the point which was raised here, the centrality of aggregate demand. Of course I agree. I mean, in these times of global crisis, Keynes came back, right? John Maynard Keynes, the economist. So now we need to look back on what is the internal demand, right? What is the internal consumption? How do produce internally? But the problem, I think, in the country is a political will, right? If we think at the sector of oil, for example, I was attending a conference a few months ago, and here now there is the chance for Uganda to produce oil by itself. The problem is that the choice which is made is not to create refineries and produce oil by themselves, but to resort to the old mechanism of having ready-made money, right, which means through royalties. Sorry, just a minute. So the point is, how do we develop the economy if just the only stuff we want is to have royalties from donors, right? Another issue, final, really, because this is important. You're talking of developing the internal economy, but why there is not on the political agenda a debate over agrarian reform? Here there is a country which is 80% people a small-scale producer. But there are no rural investments. There are no investment in agriculture, no investment in markets, no investments in implements, no investments in fertilizer. There is nothing of that. So how you want to develop the internal economy without that?
Thank
right?
you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Mr. Samuel Mpimbaza Ashaka.
I wanted to beg that why don't we concentrate on the topic, political economy of donor aid and the impact of donor aid cuts on the national economy. Yes, because people have said Museveni should go, Amama should go. I don't think when Museveni goes and Amama goes, things will be better. I highly doubt. Mr. Chairman, when you look at the topic tonight, me, I don't see much impact on donor aid cuts. It is even good they are cutting the aid, because the aid is very, very useless. If you scrutinize and see how this money is put into use, most of it either goes back or some of it is stolen. Some of it has those conditions attached. They are bringing their own expatriates. The money goes back to the donors. So I think what we need to really do is to create more employment opportunities, to modernize our agriculture. I want to give just an example, some few examples. In some parts of this country where I have worked, Mr. Ofono Pondo will agree with me. If you go to an area like Tororo, we have a lot that is happening. Rice growing, fruit growing. We have a man called Opende there who earns every season over 100 million shillings. And he's a P4 dropout who has even discovered a new type of rice, upland rice. So I think our own experts, like the professors we have and other experts, should be venturing like in that field where we've had that gentleman do that, so that we can have more industrialization. We create more employment opportunities. We use our human resource. The other day we were at university, and we have several of our professors who have got some of the best awards in the whole of